going to talk quite a bit today about how we do risk analyses and what this really means in our current climate. So our objectives for today are to recognize where risk-based decision-making fits into the clinical quality system, identify risks for a project related to monitoring, identify components to include in building the project profile risk score, and to apply risk factors to various study decisions, such as a monitoring plan, site assignments, and frequency. Recognize where risk-based decision-making fits into the clinical quality system. And this is really key, the term here, quality. We throw it out all the time in terms of how we do our trials. We need high quality data. We need to ensure patient safety and quality. But with risk-based monitoring, one of the key concepts comes from the European Medicines Agency in the approach that quality must be built into our systems. So how we build our protocols to allow us to do a little bit more risk-based decision-making, to emphasize or to focus on key data points instead of looking at everything across the board. So quality is really going to be very, very instrumental, again, in how we implement our practices. So with our current climate, why is this coming about? Why is it that we're starting to change our practices from looking at all of the data 100% on site to looking at different ways of doing this? Well, the cost of clinical trials development deadlines is significant, that we need to find ways to get our products to market sooner, to get it to market a little bit faster if we can. And with the use of technology, we should be able to do this. I think traditionally our clinical research field is a bit behind in terms of the IT industry, in terms of utilizing it, in terms of being able to use all of the very incredible systems that are out there now that are being used by other users, or for example, Intel, who develops computers. The technology and the usage and their familiarity is years ahead of the way we are implementing it within our industry. But we are getting smarter. We are recognizing that we can look at data in real time. We don't have to wait until a CRA is on site to look at those case report forms, to identify errors, to look for omissions, to look for trends, to look at safety, to look at efficacy. So we need to look at changing the timelines, which impacts the cost. And in our current climate, there's a fragmentation of roles. So what that means is that we often operate within unique silos. Our statisticians only come in at certain points. They're involved in writing the protocol, and they're involved at the end of the study. They're not always involved in the day-to-day activities. Our data managers and CRAs often work in different groupings. CRAs look at the data and source verify, and data managers post queries after that. But what we need to look at is, do those roles overlap more? Can they overlap more? Very recently I was at an investigator meeting, and we had data management members present and CRAs present, and data management was explaining that they will be posting queries in real time before the data is even monitored, and that data management can go ahead and close out queries even if they're posted by CRAs. And there was some discussion about this in terms of, well, if a CRA posts a query and they need to go back and source verify, then how can data management possibly close that query? Shouldn't that be the CRA's responsibility? And as we talked it through, very logically, it makes sense that if a query is written in a certain way, that the data points can be confirmed, that there is no reason that a remote reviewer cannot close that query if it's crystal clear that there is a difference in a value, and that if the value is simply a transcription error, it should be able to be corrected and then closed by any party who's reviewing that information. So we're starting to see a lot more overlap in our roles. And the other thing that we're facing in our current climate is globalization of clinical trials. This has been happening on a larger and larger scale, where we're outsourcing to different countries for cost, or also for indications, or also because we want global marketing approval. And we have to look at the fact that we have to be able to manage this data consistently. So we can't necessarily just rely on what's happening in each of these unique countries. We need to centrally look at this information. And we need to, again, manage it by carefully focusing on the risks. across the world, across the study, not just at each individual site.